90 seconds. That's all Belgium needed to turn a World Cup quarterfinal into the biggest officiating storm of the entire tournament. One ball, one arm, one whistle that didn't blow, and suddenly an entire country is convinced the whole thing is fixed. Stick with me for the next few minutes, because this match had a controversy buried inside a controversy, and by the end you'll understand why nobody trusts FIFA right now, even when FIFA might actually be right. Let's get into it. Start with what this match actually looked like on the pitch, because you need the shape of the game before the drama makes any sense. Spain walked into this quarterfinal on a 36-match unbeaten run, one shy of Italy's all-time record. They dominated possession from the first whistle, holding the ball for roughly two-thirds of the match and racking up almost 2 expected goals compared to Belgium's barely their 0.38. This was a team in total control. And on the half-hour mark, that control finally turned into a goal. The coach had made a surprise call before kickoff, benching a fan favorite and starting Fabian Ruiz instead, and Ruiz repaid him within 30 minutes, pouncing on a rebound after the keeper could only parry the initial shot. 1-0, and Spain looked to be cruising toward the semi-final without much resistance. But here's the number that should worry Spain more than any of the drama that followed. Spain has scored just 11 goals across 6 matches this tournament, and in 4 of those 6 games, they managed 2 goals or fewer. This is a side that hoards possession like a dragon hoards gold, but rarely turns that hoard into anything that actually hurts you. Beautiful in midfield, strangely blunt in the final third. Keep that in your back pocket, because it matters later. Then Belgium did something nobody else had managed all summer. Kevin De Bruyne threaded a clever ball through the Spanish defense, and a towering header sent it past the goalkeeper. Here's why that moment was so much bigger than a simple equalizer: it was the first goal Spain had conceded in the entire World Cup. Spain had gone roughly 650 minutes without their net rippling, a tournament record, with clean sheets against every single opponent they'd faced. And Belgium, a team many had already written off, cracked that streak right on the stroke of halftime. 1-1 at the break, and suddenly this quarterfinal had a pulse. What makes the rest of Belgium's night almost painful to watch is the state this squad was already in before a ball was even kicked. They'd lost a key midfield engine to a knee injury in the previous round. Then, barely an hour before kickoff, another midfielder tweaked his hamstring in the warm-up and had to be scratched from the lineup entirely. Belgium walked out already missing two-thirds of their first-choice midfield. And the tournament wasn't done taking things from them. The real gut punch came when their goalkeeper, a player their opponent's own manager had called a top 5 keeper in the world before kickoff, pulled up with a thigh injury. He tried to battle through it, but shortly after the hydration break, he couldn't continue. The image of him walking off, visibly emotional, wiping his face on his own shirt, said everything. He knew what everyone watching knew: the door had just been kicked wide open. Their captain and creative engine would limp off with cramp not long after. Belgium was now being held together with tape, hope, and a backup goalkeeper thrown into the deep end of a World Cup quarterfinal, having barely had time to warm up before he was suddenly the last line of defense in a match this big. It's the kind of collapse that no amount of tactical planning can prepare a squad for, injuries stacking up in real time, forcing a manager to reshuffle his entire spine of the team on the fly, with a semi-final spot still hanging in the balance. And that's exactly where the soccer gods decided to have their fun. In the 88th minute, a defender took a fairly routine shot from outside the box, the kind of effort a top-tier keeper gathers without thinking twice. The substitute keeper spilled it. Fumbled it straight back out in front of goal. And standing right there, like he'd been waiting all game for exactly this moment, a Spanish substitute smashed the rebound home on essentially his second touch since coming on. 2-1. Game over. Semi-final booked. Notice the pattern here, because it's the real story of Spain's whole tournament. That substitute has now scored the winning goal in back-to-back knockout matches after coming off the bench, turning himself into the quiet story of this run while everyone looks elsewhere for a hero. Spain isn't winning these games through their headline superstar. They're winning them through the guys who weren't even on the pitch when kickoff happened. Speaking of that headline superstar, this is where things get uncomfortable if you're a Spain fan. Every other global superstar at this tournament has shown up. The record chasers are scoring for fun, the veterans are still finding magic, the young strikers are terrorizing defenses. And then there's Spain's 18-year-old Wonderkid, the player this entire generation is supposedly built around. His tally for the tournament sits at a single goal, scored weeks ago in a routine group stage blowout. Since then, 4 straight matches without a goal or an assist. Against Belgium he managed 2 shots on target from 6 attempts, and his expected goals number for the whole tournament barely cracks 1.5. He still somehow walked away with man of the match, which tells you less about how brilliant he was and more about how quiet everyone else on that pitch was. To be fair, he's carrying a hamstring injury from the spring and arrived at this tournament racing the calendar rather than fully sharp, and he shrugged the criticism off entirely, pointing out that nobody remembers goal tallies if you lift the trophy. He has a point. But Spain's next opponent isn't going to hand them anything for free. Now, the moment everyone is actually arguing about. Midway through the second half, the ball struck a Spanish midfielder's arm inside his own box. Belgium screamed for a penalty. The referee waved it off, and video review backed him. No spot kick. In a normal tournament, that's a 5-second debate that's forgotten by breakfast. This is not a normal tournament, so let's actually look at it properly. The ball didn't fly across the box and smack an outstretched arm. It deflected off a teammate from point-blank range, giving the player no time and zero chance to pull his arm away. FIFA's own guidance to referees is explicit: you don't punish a player for contact he genuinely couldn't avoid, provided he isn't making his body unnaturally larger. By the letter of that rule, and by the spirit of it, no penalty is the defensible call. If this decision landed in a quiet, well-officiated tournament, most neutral fans would nod along and move on with their lives. But it didn't land in a quiet tournament. It landed in what might be the most scandal-soaked World Cup anyone can remember. This is the tournament where a world leader reportedly phoned FIFA directly and got a suspension overturned. Where a losing nation filed a formal complaint accusing officials of handing a match to a football giant and demanding those referees be removed entirely. Where FIFA assigned an all-one nationality officiating crew to a quarterfinal in the exact same week it was being accused of favoritism toward that same nation. Where financial investigators are reportedly digging into the defending champion's own federation. So when a genuinely 50-50 handball decision goes the way of the bigger, more favored side, a huge chunk of the watching world isn't seeing a correct application of the rulebook. They're seeing the pattern repeat. The favorite gets the benefit of the doubt again, and the smaller nation goes home with nothing but a legitimate grievance nobody in charge wants to hear. Within minutes of the final whistle, social media had already picked a side. Clips of the handball were circulating with slow-motion replays and circles drawn around the contact point, racking up millions of views before most fans had even watched the post-match interviews. Pundits split almost perfectly down the middle, some pointing at the exact guidance we just walked through, others simply pointing at the scoreboard and asking why the bigger team always seems to get the friendly whistle when it matters most. That split isn't really about one incident anymore. It's about a tournament that has trained its own audience to assume the worst before the replay even finishes loading. And here's the uncomfortable truth sitting underneath all of it: whether or not that specific call was correct, and by the letter of the law it almost certainly was, FIFA has burned through every ounce of benefit of the doubt it ever had. When you spend an entire tournament bending towards certain teams, brushing off formal complaints, and stacking officiating assignments in ways that raise eyebrows before a ball is even kicked, you don't get to keep the trust of the neutral fan on the decisions you actually get right. That's the real cost of a chaotic tournament. Every close call, correct or not, now gets filed under rigged by default. Belgium supporters will go home convinced they were robbed of a penalty, and no amount of technically correct guidance is going to talk them out of it, because the institution asking for their trust has spent months proving it doesn't deserve it. So where does this actually leave everyone? Spain march into a semi-final against opponents who have been an absolute wrecking machine all tournament, 6 wins from 6, the most explosive attacking line in the competition, and a superstar chasing the all-time World Cup goal-scoring record. That's a completely different level of test than anything Spain has faced so far, and their possession-heavy, low-scoring approach is about to run into a defense-shredding attack that punishes hesitation rather than patience. Against Belgium, Spain got away with a slow start because the opponent in front of them was already falling apart physically. They won't get that luxury again. Their next opponents have outscored teams by double digits across the tournament and have a front line that has looked close to impossible to contain for 90 straight minutes. If Spain's midfield keeps circulating the ball in low-danger areas the way they did for long stretches against Belgium, a team this clinical in transition will make them pay for every hesitant pass. If their Wonderkid doesn't show up with genuine end product this time, the passing masterclass alone might not be enough to survive. Belgium, meanwhile, fly home gutted, eliminated not really by a better team, but by their own bodies failing them one injury at a time, and by a single spilled rebound in the 88th minute. And they'll carry that penalty non-call with them for a long time, still convinced the officials cost them a shot at history nobody in Zurich particularly wanted them to have. So here's the actual question worth arguing about. Was that no penalty call the correct decision that just happened to look suspicious because of everything else going on around it, or is this simply the latest example of the big team getting the big call at exactly the right moment? Drop your take in the comments. I read every single one, and I'm curious whether the neutral fans and the Belgium fans are seeing this the same way. If you want the next breakdown the moment the semi-final wraps up, that's exactly what this channel does, so hang around, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you for the next one.